Hello and welcome. There has been a love affair between Australia and Mauritius for some time now. There were waves of emigration in the 1960s, 70s and 80s, and this is still continuing. Today, Australia has become a favorite destination for our students. I have the great pleasure to welcome to the studio Romina Panray, who is the Business Development Manager of AUSTRADE. Romina, what is the role of AUSTRADE in Mauritius?
AUSTRADE is the Australian government's trade and investment promotion agency. So our role is to ensure that Australian businesses are given full support in taking their business overseas. So typically what we do here to assist is if any Australian companies are interested to export their products or look at projects in Mauritius, we are here to provide them all the on-the-ground assistance. And on the other hand, if there are any Mauritians looking for Australian sources, we have put them in contact with the relevant partners.
What is your own role in AUSTRADE and how did you come to work for AUSTRADE in Mauritius?
Well, I've been with AUSTRADE for a fair while already. The way AUSTRADE functions is that we have offices in different countries in the world to help with this promotion of the business overseas. So for that, the importance of local knowledge is very high, which is why staff are recruited locally. So I joined AUSTRADE, about 13 years ago now. And what's kept me in the job is that it's always changing. It's never the same because you're dealing with a whole range of people in different industries. And even the way the organization is, there have been changes in sectors of focus, in the way business is done. My role in AUSTRADE is to, as business development person, to assist any Australian businesses interested in exploring opportunities in Mauritius and also the other regions that we represent. I must say that AUSTRADE divides the world into different regions. We have offices in different parts of the world, and the office in Mauritius works together with the office in Johannesburg, and together we cover the sub-Saharan Africa region. Now, it's a massive region, but we kind of leverage our resources and pool in and work together.
That sounds wonderful. It sounds as if you're always on a plane, going to South Africa, Seychelles, Madagascar.
It's not really like that. We use technology a lot. So we have all the facilities for video conferencing, phones. We are very integrated. We work really as one organization.
But you obviously enjoy your work very much since you've been there for 13 years.
Yes.
Is there any chance of going to Australia and visiting AUSTRADE or the government in Canberra?
Since we represent our Australian clients, it's important for us to maintain that contact with them. So we meet them when they come in here, but we also have to go to Australia to promote our own markets because you can imagine, like, someone in Australia sometimes may not think of Mauritius as an obvious export destination, probably looking more at Asia or Europe or the bigger places. So it's important for us also to be active in promoting the region to them.
So what are the main exports from Australia to Mauritius? What other exports from Australia do we find in Mauritius?
Well, in the top of the list, you'd have the obvious ones, the dairy products with milks and cheeses and butters. And then you have all the meats coming in for the mainstream consumption, but also a lot for the hospitality industry.
Yes.
So in the restaurants, in the hotels, because the quality of the Australian meat is well recognized, and this is why it's so popular. But on the other hand, we also have products that are imported for the manufacturing industry. For instance, you've got wool, you've got chemicals, you've got pharmaceuticals, different kinds of other manufacturing.
I think we also import a lot of Australian flour, don't we? Because our bread is made from Australian flour.
It's either wheat or the flour, depending
Yes.
on the contracts, because it's on a tender basis, annually allocated. So,
On the other hand, are there a lot of exports from Mauritius to Australia?
the trade imbalance is there, but I must say that in the past few years, the Mauritian exports to Australia has been increasing modestly, but it's been increasing. For instance, I noticed quite a lot of textiles going to Australia, also some fertilizers and some special sugars and different things.
Right. And would our students be considered an export to Australia? Is education something which is very important and figures on the list of imports, exports?
Well, education is a very important sector for Australia. Like worldwide, it's one of its main exports, considered to be one of its main exports after the traditional, basic products. Currently, there are about 470,000 international students in Australia, so that's a lot. And I've noticed that Mauritians have been, enjoying the Australian experience because the numbers of students going to Australia has been increasing steadily over the past 6 years, I'd say. And at the moment, it's the favorite destination for Mauritian students.
And why is that? Is it that Mauritian students like the way of life, the large spaces, the wine, or do they simply find it cheaper to study in Australia?
It's a great place to live in, but also the quality of education offered is well recognized. It's a very flexible system that allows, that caters for the needs of different kinds of students. You have the option of going for very generalized first-year programs and then specializing as you go along. It's also flexible in a way that it allows students to experience the more industry-focused training and then branch out either in the world of work or into further academic studies. So it's very flexible, it's of excellent quality, and on the other hand, the lifestyle is great too. It's a very multicultural society, so
And there are those famous barbecues that students enjoy on the beach. How much would it cost a Mauritian student to study in Australia for 1 year, say?
Well, it varies because the cost of the courses itself would differ from institution to institution. Some courses may cost about $22,000 to $23,000 a year. Others may cost about $10,000 a year. If you want to convert it to Mauritian rupees, you just multiply it by about 22, I'd say.
So we could say between 700,000 and 1,000,000 rupees per year to be comfortable, pay the fees, pay the accommodation, and have pocket money.
Yeah.
Are Mauritian students allowed to work 20 hours in Australia?
They are allowed to work up to 20 hours during their semesters, but it's very important that students realize they need to maintain their academic standards because they can't neglect their studies for work. So the ability to work is provided as an option to them for them to gain some experience while they're in Australia, and also, get them to do something a bit practical. It may help them in developing their own soft skills, communication skills, or even technical skills. But it's meant to be something on the side. It's not meant to be the main focus of their energies.
Yes, indeed. People go to Australia at the moment thinking that they do 2 years of study and then they will get a residence permit. Is this true, or can we dispel that rumor?
It's a myth. Nobody in the world can predict what will happen in 2 years' time. So nobody should believe that, if you're enrolling on XYZ courses, that after 2 years you'd be guaranteed permanent residency. That's just not.
And yet we hear stories of husband and wife who go to Australia with children. The husband doesn't work, the wife has a course to attend to, and they hope to stay in Australia and become Australian residents. So we can say that this is unlikely to happen, and there's no guarantee whatsoever that it's going to happen.
No guarantees.
So a student who comes to the AUSTRADE or to the Australian High Commission to find out about courses, what advice would you give that student? Where can they gather the information that they require?
Well, there are different options open to them, so it depends really on the student. You have a wealth of information online, like all the universities have information on all their courses, on the facilities they provide, on the requirements for entry in the courses, the cost, the different programs. So basically, if the students are happy to do their own research, the internet's there. And at the Student Resource Centre, we do have an internet station there that they can use to get their information.
This is in the Australian High Commission.
Yes.
In Rogers House.
Yes, we have a Student Resource Centre there, so that's one. The website, I'll give it to you. You can perhaps provide the information. And on the other hand, you may have some students who are not that confident and maybe need a little bit of counseling and guidance. To them, also there are options available. You have the careers guidance counselors, so some schools have them already. The Ministry of Education has a careers guidance office in Rosehill. And you also have a number of private agents who are operating in the market.
So the students can choose, one, to do their research, two, to look up certain websites that belong to the university, and also get in touch with agents. But I notice you brought a book here that would be very useful for students.
Yes, this is a guide to studying and living in Australia. It's produced by the Australian Department of Education. So it also gives you the website address that students can use. From here, they can search for courses they're interested in, and it'll give them a list of all the institutions offering the courses with links to their website, so they can dig for more information on them.
So it's not your role to tell students where to go and study. You cannot tell them to go to Western Australia or Eastern Australia. It is up to the students, and you don't offer any advice about how to fill in forms and how to get in touch with agents, for example.
At the Resource Centre, we have some brochures of certain institutions who've sent them to us, so they're free to consult and take away whatever material is there. As we do not provide counseling services, we refer them on to agents. So then they're free to choose which agents they wish to go to. But one important point to note is that they need to make sure the agents that they're going to are licensed with the Ministry of Education, because that's an important criteria. It ensures their own protection, basically.
And how many agents are licensed? Are there a lot of agents that are licensed?
As at January, I think there were about 20 or 23 licensed agents operating in Mauritius, but not all of them handle Australian institutions. So the ones working with Australia, maybe about 12 or so of them.
And where would you find the names and the addresses of agents?
On the Ministry of Education's website.
Here in Mauritius?
Yes.
There are also fairs, students' fairs, organized, for example, by the Rotary Club in Grand Bay. Are these taking place soon, or have they taken place?
They take place in May normally, every year. On the Australian side, we badge an Australian pavilion. So like we have the main agent representing Australian unis and any unis that decide to come out. So we are all located in one region, so it's easily marked as Australia. So.
And you are going to be there, and AUSTRADE is going to be
We are going to be there. We'll have a government booth, Australian government booth, so we'll be on it. And we should be also having support from the Department of Immigration, so we'll have someone there to provide information to students on visas and the different...
Yes. As regards visas, are those visas applied for at the university where you choose to study, or are they applied for here in Mauritius?
No, the visas are applied for from here, because you can't go to Australia without a visa. But there are two categories of visas for Mauritian students. The first category is for people going for degree courses or master's degrees. They apply online. So basically, once they have confirmed their place at the university and received the relevant documentation, they can lodge their application online and then follow all the instructions and get the response within, I'd say, about 2-3 weeks.
So you fill in the form online and you send certified copies of your degrees and diplomas and so on.
There's the filling in the form, providing all the documentation required, the payments, and also they need to take some medical exams here to ensure that they're in good health. Basically, for a visa, they need to show proof of funds, that they're able to support themselves, that they're in good health, and that their results are valid.
And can you tell us if there are any scholarships offered to students by the Australian government?
Unfortunately, not by the Australian government, but universities do have scholarships programs, and many of them, many Mauritian students have benefited from scholarships from Australian unis.
Is this under the Commonwealth Plan, or is there a university-based program?
Yeah, university-based.
I see. But generally speaking, once you've filled in your form, you've obtained your visa, you also need a medical, don't you?
You do.
So how do you get a medical, and who do you present the medical to?
From the immigration website, when the student will start the application process, they will be provided with a list of panel doctors in Mauritius to whom they go for the medical exam.
At their own expense?
Yes, yes. And also there's a second category of visas that's for people going for diplomas or advanced diplomas. That's the vocational programs. They need to lodge their application in Mauritius. And this category of visa normally takes much longer to process, so they need to make sure it's all provided well in advance before they are due to leave.
And if you're a married student and you have a husband or a spouse, a wife and children, should you get visas, or should you have a permit for all members of the family, not just yourself?
Yeah.
How do you go about getting those permits?
The application is normally made by the student, so any accompanying family members would be on that application, and basically the requirements and information is available from the website, so they can refer to that.
There have been, Romina, some very, very strange stories about students in Australia. People sleeping under bridges in Melbourne, and Melbourne has a very harsh climate. People ending up in dormitories where there are drug addicts. Are these exceptions, or are there many hardship cases in Australia?
Well, these are very unfortunate cases. I suspect it's probably due to lack of prior preparation before embarking on this huge adventure. From what I've gathered so far, it's like these students have not really cross-checked what they were told and acted upon some dodgy advice provided to them. But we should also stress that there are support facilities at the disposal of students. So if any student in Australia feels disadvantaged or threatened or in trouble, there are different people that they can approach for help. The institution they are enrolled in would normally have a support service, a counseling service that they can use, but also the authorities in the cities where they live would be available to help.
What authorities, for example, the Department of Social Security?
Yeah, I think you have the Samaritans, the Red Cross, the police even, they can help refer them on to the right people.
You have a Mauritian embassy or High Commission in Canberra. The students can address any complaints or any requests for help to the
Yes.
Mauritian embassy, and therefore the Mauritian embassy could intervene if there's a problem with payment of rent or if there's a problem with universities and so on.
As in all embassies, even the Mauritian embassy would be having consular services. So
Yes.
Mauritians in distress anywhere would, if they contact the embassy, I'm sure they would be helped.
But these are rare cases.
Yeah.
And most of the students who go to Australia are very happy and in fact very comfortable, aren't they? They come back with great stories of having spent 4 years or 3 years in utopia. Do you think we look upon Australia as some kind of El Dorado utopia? Is that good or is it bad?
It's good in the sense that it provides them with an opening, an opportunity to develop and to see, different parts of the world and to get good experiences overseas, which only helps grow their minds. I think it comes down to the individual and what they make of the opportunities that come in their reach.
To come back to your AUSTRADE role, are there many projects that Australians and Mauritians work on at the moment?
Well, it comes and goes, so it depends on what's happening and what fields of expertise. For instance, Australia has very strong expertise in certain areas. So in terms of consultancies, we've had a number of Australian consultants do projects here. We are also always on the lookout, so if there's any interesting project coming up here, we're sure to feed it through to them.
And how do you do that? Do you contact an Australian firm and say there's a demand?
Yeah, we work, as I had mentioned before, we work very closely with our other offices. So for instance, if we are seeking information from Australia on very specific fields of expertise, we'd refer to our colleagues in Australia, who would in turn contact the clients there and explain what the brief is. And if they are interested, then we take over once they are.
In what fields, for example, has there been some cooperation between Australia and Mauritius?
Engineering, IT, education, very big. It's very wide.
Yes, I've heard of some Australians who come over here to create golf courses. Is there a big demand for Australians to come and
I
do
think
this
also
kind of work?
These projects would be like spot projects, so you wouldn't have many golf courses being created in Mauritius. But yes, Australia certainly has expertise in this area too.
So you see many Australians who come from Australia and turn up at the Australian High Commission asking for advice in terms of trade or commerce? Or
ideally, they would contact us before embarking on the journey, so we are able to brief them and provide them good on-the-ground information. And when they come in, it's like they're well prepared and hit the ground running, so to speak. But yes, we do also have people dropping in for information on the spot.
I've noticed a lot of health products made from eucalyptus and emu and so on. Is this a big sector where there's some development?
It is big in Australia, but not a lot imported here because the market itself is not very big. So you must realize certainly we are competing with Asia, with different sources.
Yes.
So the Australian products tend to be at a certain level. And
having worked for AUSTRADE for 13 years, what is your vision of Australia? How would you describe Australia to somebody who has never seen Australia, doesn't know about Australia? Is it a forward-looking nation, a very friendly nation? How would you describe Australia?
Well, it's very friendly, but very, very diverse. You have everything from deserts to snow. You have camels, you have dolphins, you have all sorts of experiences there. It's very advanced in research. So you have, for instance, a number of Nobel Prize winners having come from Australia. On the other hand, it's very well established in the basic sectors as well, in agriculture, in mining, in different regions. So what you think of when you think of Australia is just immense and so many opportunities.
A lot of interesting animals too, hopping around Australia. And a sporty nation. There doesn't seem to be a great link in sport between Mauritius and Australia. We don't hear of many sportsmen coming over here.
It's probably due to the different focus. Australia's big on rugby and cricket, and Mauritius is more the soccer kind. So I think if we were able to get that to match, that would help.
Absolutely. Romina, thank you very much for coming and talking to us. We have learned a lot about Australia and Australian Mauritian links, and we encourage all the students to check the websites,
Certainly.
to go through the normal procedures and not to believe myths and stories about going to Australia and all of a sudden getting a permit to stay. So learn about your facts, do some research, find out about universities, and you'll have a wonderful career in studying at tertiary level.
Thank you.
Thank you, Romina.